Okay, well, welcome to week number 13 of my summer semester 2024 as I'm working towards a master's degree in history. This week in my classes, we're kind of wrapping everything up because the semester's only 14 weeks long. So this week, uh, I didn't have to do a whole lot of things, which is kind of nice. Just trying to wrap everything up that we've been doing. We did our final lecture in my Chinese class, which has been really a fun one to take. So that's that's been fun. So we got all that wrapped up with like the modern history and things for China. The main thing that I have to work on for that class now is the capstone project. So the capstone project is this final essay we have to do. So we looked at from around 2500 BC up to about 1900, 1800 AD. So almost 4,000 years of Chinese history that we went through, which is really cool. A lot of fascinating stuff. I'm sure we just hit the highlights. We didn't get super deep into it. I'm sure there's a ton more to learn. So this capstone essay, we have to look at the whole of Chinese history that we've gone through, and write a paper, 1,500 word paper on something that has stayed consistent through the whole time. Has what aspects of Chinese history have stayed consistent, or what aspects of Chinese history may have changed over time. It's more about helping us learn about critical thinking and looking for trends and patterns and ideas and things. Um, it's going to be a fun one to do. I've been looking into it. One concept that really I saw a lot of in there is this concept called filial piety. Filial piety is a idea that originates in Confucianism back in the very beginning of Chinese history. That basically it talks about the importance of honoring and respecting your elders. So a child honors and respects their parent, but the parent also, it's not a one-sided thing. The parents also ensure opportunities and value and things for the children. So it's this loop. Basically, the children take care of the parents, parents take care of the children. This expanded over time to get into ancestry worship, where you venerate and give sacrifices and oblations to your ancestors once a year, as well as it got changed into honoring and following your political leaders also. So it changed and adjusted over time, but it became a major part of Chinese society. And it's probably still there a little bit today, not quite as much as it used to be. It has led to some interesting concepts there in ancient Chinese history, and we're not talking, I'm talking like 1800s time frame, 1900s. There was a concept that when a woman gets married, you having being like a virgin when you get married, and then staying true to your husband the whole time is super super important the uh, to the culture in China. And so what happens is when your husband dies, women don't get remarried. Typically, they would stay true and faithful to the one husband they had, and so basically you just live the rest of your life without a husband. And the problem is there's a catch-22 in there that just like in Western society, women couldn't really own a lot of stuff or do things. I think they were a little more progressive in China than they were in the West, but it was really limited what women could do on their own. They couldn't run a household on their own or do other things on their own. And so a widow, in a way, became a burden on society to an extent and to her family. And so, but this idea of filial piety shifted and changed. And it came up with this idea of if your husband dies, then you should die too. So lots and lots of women would commit suicide after the death of their husband as a way of maintaining their fidelity to him. uh, which is crazy to think about. But it happened. They had the foot binding thing. The women would like bind their feet up, basically. All kinds of things that would happen. So there's some interesting interpretations of filial piety over time in China. My capstone essay, I'm going to do mine on what's called the Central Kingdom. China had this tendency to see themselves as like the kingdom. In fact, in ancient Chinese history, when they look in archaeology to look for origins of Chinese people, they believed a long, long time ago, because they found bones that were super, super old that almost date back to the beginning of Homo sapiens, things like that too. That the Chinese had a belief for a long, long time. It wasn't until more recent, like 1800s time frame, that this changed. But most of Chinese history, they believed that they evolved as a people separate than everybody else. They weren't Homo sapien, human, like Europe. They were different. And so they were a advanced race. They were always selling their technology to the West. Basically, they made paper first. They actually invented the movable type printing press before Gutenberg did by over a century. They had like the kind of ships they had were phenomenal. They had all kinds of things that were that they figured out long before Western world did. So silk was a big one. Tea actually originates from China. There's the legend of a queen that some leaves fell into her cup, and she had a cup of hot water. Why she was sitting there with a cup of hot water, I don't know. But the leaves fell in accidentally, and then they steeped inside the hot water and formed a tea. And she liked it. It tasted good. It was nice. And then that spurned the whole tea craze in China, which later went to England and the rest of Europe. So China was importing lots of ideas and concepts and technology for centuries. So they saw themselves as a central kingdom. They were the apex kingdom, and everybody else should pay homage to them. So China was never really in the idea of conquering other nations, like we consider the idea of Portugal and Spain when Christopher Columbus sailed across the ocean and ran into the Caribbean. That spawned a huge run for resources. Portugal, Spain were the big ones. They would move slaves over, they would mine and get resources and then bring them back to their country. So that was all about extracting resources. Whereas China didn't do that. They would go in and they would get people to pay taxes to them like a tribute, and that was it. So not unlike Egypt. Egypt believed they were the promised land, and why would anybody want to live anywhere else? So you'd want to stay in Egypt. So they didn't really, even though they would conquer other surrounding areas, Egypt didn't expand its own borders necessarily. They stayed there because they believed they were the God-given promised land. China had a similar idea that they thought they were it. They were the apex of society. Everybody else should want to be like them. And so they didn't conquer other people. They stayed in China and then traded with other people. So just a different idea. So I'm going to do my report on that this week. So I did a lot of research this week on it, and I'll probably have it written and submitted next week. For my religious introduction to religion class, we had this week was a lot about understanding modernization of religion. So the idea of other religions coming out of religions, like the Reformation, branching off from Catholicism. We kind of got into the idea of as religion has moved along, I guess, with improvements in society. We're increasing in technology. We're increasing in the ability to communicate with other countries. As the dynamics of society and the world have changed over time, does religion keep up with it or not? How far does religion go as far as modernizing itself? So we see that there's, excuse me about sneeze there, there's two major camps that tend to happen. There's the conservative camp. These are the groups of people in religion that want it to stay traditional, want it to stay the way it always has been. They oftentimes think about religion from the standpoint of it's perfect already. It's what we have is great. Let's not lose what we have. Uh, it needs to stay true in the past and in the future. They just have a hard time integrating into the future, so they hold on to the past. So this is more of a conservative perspective of religion, and most religions go through this, where this conservative perspective is we need to stay the way we've always been. But then there's a more progressive group that tends to emerge, and they say we want to adapt and modernize and adjust to where we're at. Now, the thing that's important to think about with these, there's not a right or wrong. Okay, the conservative group wants to maintain the purity of the religion. That's not a bad thing. That's not bad to say, hey, it's worked. Why should we change it? Okay, but the progressives say, hey, there's new things we have to think about, new ideas we have to consider. It's not bad to think of how can we improve how we think about it. Sometimes religions have a limited perspective from the past, and so as we look at how can that apply to newer things, sometimes our perspective can expand and we see, oh, that didn't just mean this one little thing, that meant this greater piece. I didn't realize that. Okay. So there's not a right or wrong. It's not like, oh, if we get rid of traditions, we're going to destroy the religion. And it's not that if we don't adapt to the new stuff, we're going to fall behind and the religion's going to be false or whatever. There's good points and bad points on both of these. They're different perspectives of the religion. The goal that we should be focusing on isn't so much of worrying about, is my religion being progressive? Is it being ultra conservative or whatever? No, we should be focused on what is the truth. What is really the truth? And that's obviously not something that this video is meant to answer and discuss. But that's what it comes down to is, should religions progress with the changes of society? Should religions adapt to new situations in society? Yeah, they probably should. Should religions also hold on to traditions? Yeah, so long as they're true. That's the goal. If it's true, hold on to it. If it's not true, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter how long it's been done. If it's not true, don't worry about it. So that was kind of interesting as we've looked at different religions to see, how has women's roles in religion has evolved. Some religions want women to be more involved. Some religions don't want more women to be involved. There's different ideas that come into play. Some are changing with the times, some are not. So that's what we talked about today or this week was more about the modernization of religion as it's moving forward. Is it modernizing? Is it adjusting and going through those exercises of understanding what needs to happen to help the religion continue to further its goals. So some fun things that we've been able to talk about. So we'll finish up next week with the summer semester. Basically, we'll be done next week. And then we're going to start talking more about also fall semester. I've been reading a whole lot of books to get ready for fall semester, and I'm looking forward to talking with you about these books that I've been reading for my classes, and so we can get ready for that semester too. So I look forward to talking to you more next week.